Welcome back to the channel, and a huge thank you to every collector, treasure hunter, history lover, and curious mind tuning in today, because what we are about to explore is one of the most fascinating and talked about modern coin mysteries ever discussed in numismatic circles, a story that sounds unbelievable at first yet keeps resurfacing in whispers, auction rumors, collector forums, and late-night searches. The legendary tale of the 1996 D1 cent that some claim could be worth as much as $12 million due to a unique convergence of minting errors, production mistakes, metal anomalies, and historical timing that together create the perfect storm of rarity, intrigue, and desirability. And as you settle in, imagine holding an ordinary-looking copper-colored penny in your palm, the kind most people wouldn't even bother picking up from the ground. Yet this single cent has been rumored to carry a value that rivals luxury mansions, supercars, and priceless art, and the reason behind such staggering worth is not just one simple flaw but a layered combination of errors that collectors dream about, beginning with the context of 1996 itself, a year when the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents across multiple facilities, including the Denver Mint identified by the small d mint mark beneath the date, a period of massive output where speed, efficiency, and volume were prioritized, increasing the likelihood of subtle but extraordinary mistakes slipping through unnoticed. And among these, the 1996 D cent occupies a special place because Denver cents from this year were not expected to carry certain characteristics that some alleged examples show, which immediately raises eyebrows in the numismatic community, starting with the most talked about possibility, the use of an incorrect planchet. Because while 1996 Lincoln cents were officially struck on copper-plated zinc planchets introduced in 1982, there have been persistent claims that a tiny number of 1996 D cents were struck on older bronze or experimental alloy planchets, something that would already place them in the extreme rarity category, since any post-1982 cent struck on a pre-1982 copper planchet represents a mint error of monumental significance, and when you combine that with a Denver Mint mark, which historically has fewer known wrong planchet errors than Philadelphia, the potential value skyrockets, especially if metallurgical testing confirms an off-metal composition consistent with bronze, and collectors know that off-metal errors are among the most valuable mistakes in U.S. coinage, sometimes reaching 6 or 7 figures on their own. But the story does not stop there, because another layer often mentioned is the possibility of a transitional error, where dies prepared for one composition or design stage were mistakenly used beyond their intended period. And in the mid-1990s, the Mint was experimenting with different plating thicknesses, metal bonding processes, and die treatments to improve coin longevity and reduce costs, opening the door for anomalies such as improperly bonded copper plating that peels, blisters, or separates entirely, exposing the zinc core in dramatic ways. And while plating errors are common, an extreme and unique manifestation on a Denver minted 1996 cent paired with other errors could multiply value exponentially, especially if the error presents in a way never officially documented. And then there is the matter of double dies, one of the most beloved error types among collectors, where misalignment during die creation causes doubling on inscriptions, dates, or Lincoln's features. And while most double dies are minor, rumors persist of an exceptionally strong double die obverse or reverse on a 1996 D cent that was never widely released, possibly caught early and melted, leaving only a handful of survivors. And if such doubling affected key elements like the date, Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, or the Lincoln Memorial details, the visual impact alone would make the coin instantly recognizable and highly coveted, especially when authenticated by a major grading service, because strong double dies have historically commanded immense premiums, and when combined with a wrong planchet or off-metal strike, the result becomes something almost mythical in the collecting world. And adding to the intrigue is the speculation around Mule errors, where mismatched dies intended for different denominations or years are paired together, a phenomenon extremely rare in modern coinage but not impossible. And while no officially confirmed 1996 D cent Mule has been publicly documented, collectors love to imagine the scenario of a cent obverse paired with an unexpected reverse, or a reverse from a different year or mint, which would instantly place such a coin among the rarest U.S. errors ever known, with values that could reach into the multi-million-dollar range, especially if only one example exists. And rarity is the heartbeat of value in numismatics, because the fewer known specimens, the more intense the competition among elite collectors, investors, and museums, and another contributing factor often discussed is the possibility of a die cap or blockage error, where a coin becomes stuck to a die and impresses its image onto subsequent planchets, creating dramatic mirrored or distorted designs. And while die caps are known, a full or partial die cap sent from 1996 D in pristine condition, especially if combined with off-metal composition, would be an extraordinary survivor. And then there are striking errors such as multiple strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and rotated dies, each fascinating on its own. But again, it is the combination that fuels the $12 million narrative, because collectors know that single errors are exciting, but multiple major errors on a single coin are exponentially rarer, sometimes bordering on unique, and the value of such a coin is not just based on metal or face value but on the story it tells, the accident frozen in time during a fraction of a second at the mint, and the 1996 D-cent story is further amplified by the fact that Denver cents from this era are generally common and overlooked, meaning a spectacular error could have easily circulated unnoticed, spent at a gas station, dropped in a parking lot, or tucked into a jar, surviving years of wear before being discovered by someone with a keen eye. And the idea that such a treasure could still be out there fuels countless searches, roll hunts, and metal detector outings. And then there is the condition factor, because even the rarest error loses value if heavily damaged, but a high-grade uncirculated or near-mint state example with blazing luster, minimal contact marks, and clear error visibility would be in a league of its own, especially if certified at MS67 or higher, and when you combine extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, historical intrigue, and pristine preservation, you enter a realm where traditional price guides no longer apply and auction results are driven by emotion, prestige, and the desire to own something no one else can. And that is where the $12 million figure begins to make sense, not as a guaranteed price but as a theoretical ceiling if the right coin meets the right buyer at the right moment. Perhaps two billionaire collectors competing, or a private institution wanting the ultimate modern US era coin. And the possibilities do not end there, because some discussions also mention missing mint marks or altered mint marks. Although intentional alteration is not valued, a genuine mint error involving a filled or misplaced D-mint mark could add another layer of uniqueness. And there is also talk of die cracks, cuds, and retained cuds on 1996 D-cents, where chunks of the die broke away, leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin. And while minor die cracks are common, a massive cut affecting a large portion of the design could be spectacular. And again, if paired with other errors, the value escalates. And another angle often overlooked is the historical timing of collector awareness, because in 1996, the internet was still in its infancy, meaning error discoveries were slower to spread, documentation was limited, and many coins were never reported. Unlike today where social media instantly broadcasts finds worldwide, so it is entirely plausible that a legendary error slipped through quietly, sold privately, or remains undiscovered, and this uncertainty keeps the legend alive, because numismatics thrives on the unknown, the possibility that the next great discovery is still waiting. And when people hear $12 million attached to a penny, skepticism is natural, yet history supports the idea that extraordinary coins can achieve extraordinary prices, as seen with famous rarities like the 1943 copper cent or the 1913 Liberty nickel. Coins once dismissed as myths that later sold for millions, and the 1996 D-cent narrative borrows power from these precedents, suggesting that modern coins are not immune to legendary status. And as collectors examine their change, they are encouraged to look beyond face value, to weigh coins, inspect edges, study details under magnification, and learn the subtle differences that separate ordinary from extraordinary, because knowledge is the key that unlocks hidden value. And the story of the 1996 D1 cent is ultimately a story about attention, curiosity, and the magic of mistakes, how a system designed for perfection occasionally falters, creating artifacts that transcend their humble origins. And whether or not a $12 million example has been confirmed publicly, the very possibility inspires a new generation of collectors to search, learn, and dream, turning everyday pocket change into a gateway to history and potential fortune. And as this tale continues to circulate. Next. 1989 1-cent coin. Today, because what we are about to explore is one of the most fascinating and controversial stories in the entire world of coin collecting, a story that sounds unbelievable at first but grows more intriguing the deeper you go. A simple 1-cent coin dated 1989, a penny that most people would ignore, toss into a jar, or spend without a second thought. Yet according to collectors, legends, error specialists, and whispered auction rumors, this tiny copper coin could be worth as much as $10 million, not because it was made of gold or silver, not because it belonged to a king or a lost empire, but because of a series of rare errors, mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities that turned an everyday object into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And as you sit back and listen, imagine the pennies you may have handled, imagine the ones sitting quietly in drawers, piggy banks, or old purses, because sometimes history hides in plain sight. And today we are diving deep into how a 1989 1-cent coin could reach a value so high it changes lives overnight. The year 1989 itself was not particularly unusual at first glance. It was a time of global change, walls falling, new eras beginning, and at the United States Mint, millions upon millions of pennies were being produced daily. These coins were intended for everyday commerce, struck rapidly with speed, efficiency, and uniformity. Yet whenever machines work at such massive scale and human oversight meets industrial pressure, mistakes can and do happen, and it is precisely within these mistakes that collectors find magic. The 1989 1-cent coin was primarily struck in copper-plated zinc, a composition introduced earlier in the decade to save costs with a thin copper coating over a zinc core. But even this simple change opened the door to dramatic errors, including wrong planchets, missing layers, incomplete bonding, and chemical reactions that could transform the coin internally over time. One of the most valuable possibilities associated with a 1989 penny is the wrong planchet error, where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another metal altogether. Imagine a penny struck on a bronze planchet leftover from earlier years, or even more shocking, a planchet intended for a dime, nickel, or foreign coin. Such mistakes are extremely rare because modern minting processes are designed to prevent exactly this scenario, but rarity is what drives value, and if a 1989 1-cent were proven to be struck on the wrong metal with authenticated weight, composition, and mint origin, the value would instantly skyrocket into the millions, especially if it were a unique example with no others known. Another extraordinary error possibility lies in the realm of double dies, and not the minor doubling seen on many coins, but dramatic hub doubling affecting major design elements such as the date, the lettering, the portrait of Lincoln, or the memorial on the reverse. During the late 80s, the mint still relied on hubbing processes that could create strong double dies if alignment failed between impressions. A 1989 penny with bold visible doubling on both obverse and reverse would already be extremely valuable, but if that doubling were combined with additional errors such as off-metal strike or broad strike conditions, the value multiplies rapidly. Collectors pay premiums not just for rarity but for visual impact and storytelling, and a penny that visibly displays its own manufacturing chaos becomes a tangible piece of mint history. Another major factor that could push a 1989 penny into eight-figure territory is the presence of transitional errors, which occur when old and new designs, metals, or processes overlap during a changeover period. While 1989 was not officially a transition year like some others, the mint often experiments, tests, and adjusts materials quietly behind the scenes, and there is long-standing speculation among error specialists that experimental planchets, alloys, or test strikes occasionally escape into circulation. If a 1989 penny were discovered to contain an unreported alloy composition or internal structure inconsistent with official records, it would rewrite part of mint history, and such discoveries are priceless because they do not just represent an error, they represent new knowledge, and collectors, museums, and institutions compete fiercely for such pieces, driving values to unimaginable heights. Then there are striking errors such as multiple strikes, where the coin was struck more than once, often rotated or misaligned, creating overlapping images of Lincoln and distorted lettering. While multiple strikes do occur, they are usually caught and destroyed, but a perfectly preserved multi-struck 1989 penny, especially one showing clear separation between strikes with dramatic visual appeal, could be worth a fortune, and if paired with a capped die or struck through grease, cloth, or debris, the uniqueness compounds value. Collectors often describe these coins as frozen moments of mechanical failure, each telling a story no other coin can tell. Another realm of possibility involves mint mark anomalies. While some years are famous for missing mint marks or misplaced mint marks, a 1989 penny with a mint mark that should not exist, such as an impossible combination or a mint mark punched over another in a way not documented, could raise immediate alarms among experts. Authenticity would be scrutinized heavily, but if proven genuine, it would become one of The most important error coins ever discovered because it would challenge existing documentation of mint practices, and collectors pay extraordinary sums for coins that break the rules of what is believed to be possible beyond physical errors. There is also the mysterious category of intentional or semi-intentional anomalies, sometimes referred to as insider errors. These occur when experimental dies patterns or unofficial test strikes are created within the mint environment and later escape due to oversight, theft, or confusion. Such coins often lack official acknowledgement, making them controversial yet incredibly valuable. If a 1989 penny were proven to be an experimental strike, perhaps featuring subtle design differences in Lincoln's portrait lettering, spacing, or memorial detail that align with internal mint testing documents, it would be a numismatic bombshell. Collectors chase provenance as much as metal, and a coin with a story that traces back to secretive experimentation commands. Enormous premiums. Condition also plays a crucial role because even the rarest error loses value if damaged, yet some errors inherently prevent perfect condition, and collectors understand this. Grading services evaluate such coins differently, focusing on originality, completeness of the error, and appeal. If a 1989 penny with a massive error survived in near mint state condition with minimal circulation, where it would be almost miraculous, and miracles in numismatics are rewarded handsomely, then there is the psychological factor. The human fascination with the ordinary turned extraordinary. The idea that a penny worth 1 cent could be worth $10 million captivates not just collectors but the general public, and when public attention meets extreme rarity, prices can explode beyond traditional valuation models. Wealthy investors, museums, and private collectors may compete not just to own the coin but to own the story, to own the headline, to own the piece of metal that proves that hidden treasure still exists in modern times, and this competitive energy can push prices into unprecedented territory, especially if the coin is unique or one of only a few known examples. Auction dynamics also play a significant role because the true value of any collectible is ultimately what someone is willing to pay, and when two or more determined bidders with deep pockets believe they are chasing history, logic often gives way to emotion. Record prices are set not because of metal content but because of desire and legacy, and a 1989 penny with world-class errors would be the ultimate conversation piece, the ultimate trophy. Then there are rumors and whispers within the collecting community, stories of a 1989 penny locked away in a private collection, unseen by the public, examined quietly by experts, debated behind closed doors. Some say it shows evidence of being struck on a copper planchet intended for a pre-1982 cent. Others claim it bears multiple errors combined in one strike, while skeptics dismiss these stories as myths. Yet history has shown time and again that today's rumors often become tomorrow's confirmed discoveries. Many of the most famous error coins were once dismissed as impossible until they appeared and changed everything. Another factor that elevates the potential value is timing. As populations of coins are studied and census data evolves, a unique coin discovered decades after minting carries extra weight because it proves it survived unnoticed for years. This adds mystique and authenticity, and collectors value the romance of discovery as much as the object itself. The idea that a $10 million coin could sit unnoticed in circulation for decades fuels treasure hunting behavior and keeps the hobby alive. Authentication would of course be critical. Any claim of such value would require rigorous testing, metallurgical analysis, weight measurement, die study, and historical research. But if a 1989 penny passed these tests and emerged as a legitimate, unprecedented error, its value would not be theoretical, it would be very real and potentially transformative for whoever discovered it. Beyond monetary worth, such a coin would become a symbol, a reminder that perfection is not required for greatness, that mistakes can create value, and that even in an age of advanced technology, human systems still produce anomalies worth celebrating. It would also inspire renewed interest in coin collecting, drawing new generations. Next, 1996 1-cent coin. Today, because if you love pocket change turning into life-changing money, you are absolutely in the right place, and today's story is one that captures the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people alike as we explore the fascinating idea of a 1996 1-cent coin that could cost as much as $8 million because of extraordinary errors, mistakes, and rare possibilities that transform an ordinary copper-plated zinc penny into one of the most valuable small denomination coins ever imagined. And as we begin this journey, it is important to understand that the world of rare coins is not just about age but about stories, accidents, precision, failures, and tiny details that most people overlook, yet those very details can create unbelievable value. And the 1996 1-cent coin sits right at the crossroads of mass production and microscopic imperfection because 1996 was a year when hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents were struck by the United States Mint across multiple facilities using high-speed presses designed to produce coins efficiently and consistently. Yet even in such a controlled environment, mistakes can and do happen, and when those mistakes slip past quality control, they become legendary, and the possibility of a 1996 penny reaching an $8 million valuation begins with understanding just how many different types of errors can occur during the minting process and how combinations of those errors stacked together can elevate a simple coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Because the minting process involves multiple stages including blank creation, planchet preparation, die creation, die pairing, alignment, striking, pressure, and post-strike handling, and at every stage there exists the possibility for human error, mechanical malfunction, or material inconsistency. And while many minor errors exist and are worth only small premiums, there are ultra-rare catastrophic errors that fundamentally change the identity of a coin, and it is within this category that the hypothetical $8,001,996.01 lives. Because imagine a 1996 penny struck on the wrong planchet, such as a bronze planchet intended for an earlier year, or even a foreign metal planchet such as aluminum, bronze, or experimental alloy, which would already make it exceptionally rare. But then imagine that same coin also displaying a dramatic off-center strike where the design is shifted far from its normal position, revealing blank metal crescent areas combined with a broad strike that causes the coin to expand beyond its normal diameter while retaining readable details. And then add to that a doubled die obverse where Lincoln's portrait inscriptions and dates show strong separation and doubling visible to the naked eye. And further imagine that the coin also features a rotated die error where the reverse is misaligned by a significant degree, such as 90 or 180 degrees relative to the obverse, and suddenly you are no longer talking about a simple error but a convergence of multiple extreme errors on a single coin, which is extraordinarily unlikely. And that improbability is precisely what fuels the massive valuation, because collectors at the highest level are not just buying metal, they are buying rarity, stories, and the physical manifestation of minting chaos. And when we talk about $8 million, we are talking about a coin that would likely be unique, or one of perhaps 2 or 3 known examples in existence, because once a coin reaches that level of rarity, it transcends normal pricing guides and enters the realm of elite auctions, private collectors, and institutional interest. And another layer of value comes from condition, because error coins are often damaged or circulated, but a 1996 penny with these dramatic errors preserved in near mint or uncirculated condition would be exponentially more valuable, because sharp details, original surfaces, and minimal wear amplify desirability. And then there is the possibility of transitional errors, which are among the most coveted in numismatics, because they represent moments when the mint changed compositions, designs, or processes, and leftover materials were accidentally used. And while 1996 is not officially a transitional year like 1982, which shifted from copper to zinc, there are still possibilities involving experimental dies, testing strikes, or wrong metal stock that could have been introduced into production and accidentally struck and released. And if documentation or metallurgical analysis confirms that a 1996 penny was struck on an unauthorized or experimental alloy, the value would skyrocket, because such coins provide insight into mint practices that were never meant to reach the public, and collectors pay enormous premiums for that kind of historical evidence. And another scenario that pushes valuation into the millions is a Mule error, which occurs when the obverse die of one coin is paired with the reverse die of a completely different denomination or design. And while Mule errors are extremely rare, if a 1996 Lincoln cent obverse were paired with a reverse intended for a different coin such as a dime or even a foreign coin, the numismatic world would erupt, because such a combination would be unprecedented and likely unique. And uniqueness is the single most powerful driver of value, because when there is only one example, competition among wealthy collectors can drive prices to astonishing heights and beyond. Mechanical errors. There are also striking anomalies such as die caps, where a coin sticks to a die and repeatedly strikes other blanks, creating a distorted mushroom-like shape. And if such a die cap were removed late in its life, retaining readable details and dated 1996, it would already be rare. But again, combining this with other errors multiplies value. And then there is the human element, because errors are often discovered years or decades after minting, and when a story emerges of a rare coin Found in pocket change, a coin jar, or an inherited collection, it captures public imagination and increases demand across the market. And demand is critical because even the rarest coin needs buyers willing to pay, and the Lincoln cent is one of the most widely collected coins in the world, which means the audience for an extraordinary example is massive, and when you combine widespread interest with extreme rarity, prices can escalate rapidly and the $8 million figure becomes conceivable. When the coin is authenticated, graded, and certified by top-tier grading services which provide legitimacy and confidence to buyers, and such certification would likely include extensive analysis, X-ray fluorescence, metal composition studies, dye state examination, and comparison to known mint records, and once confirmed, the coin would become a centerpiece of numismatic discussion, featured in publications, exhibits, and auctions, and that publicity further increases its desirability and beyond errors. There is also the factor of historical context, because 1996 marked the early years of widespread zinc core cents and discussions about the future of the penny, and any coin that highlights flaws or anomalies in that era becomes a talking point in debates about minting efficiency and monetary policy, and collectors love coins that represent turning points or controversies. And then there is the possibility of deliberate sabotage or unauthorized experimentation within the mint, which, while rare, has occurred historically, and if evidence suggested that a 1996 penny was intentionally struck in a non-standard way by a mint employee, it would raise ethical questions but also massive interest and value, because such coins become artifacts of human behavior within institutions, and all of these factors together create a narrative where a 1996 1-cent coin could theoretically reach an $8 million valuation, not because every 1996 penny is valuable, but because the convergence of extreme errors, pristine condition, uniqueness, documented authenticity, and compelling story transforms a 1-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And the key takeaway for anyone watching is that value in coins often hides in plain sight, and while the odds of finding such a coin are incredibly small, they are not zero, and history has shown again and again that extraordinary discoveries can emerge from ordinary places, and that is why collectors examine their change with care, why stories like this continue to inspire, and why the humble penny remains one of the most exciting areas of numismatics, because even in modern times with advanced technology, perfection is never guaranteed, and where imperfection exists, opportunity follows. And as you go through your own coins, remember that behind every piece of pocket change lies a complex journey of metal machines and human decisions, and sometimes, just sometimes, those journeys produce something truly extraordinary that can change lives and rewrite what we think is possible from a simple 1-cent coin. Last 2011 1-cent coin. Today, because what we are about to talk about is one of the most mind-bending stories in modern coin collecting, a story that proves treasure does not only belong to ancient times or lost civilizations but can exist quietly in our own pockets today. We are diving deep into the incredible mystery of the 2011 1-cent coin, a penny that on the surface looks exactly like millions of others, yet under the right circumstances, with the right combination of errors, mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities, could be worth an astonishing $9 million. And as you listen, imagine how many pennies you have touched, ignored, spent, or tossed aside without a second glance, because this story is about how a single overlooked detail can transform an ordinary object into a life-changing discovery. The year 2011 was not known as a dramatic year for coin production in the eyes of the public. The United States Mint was operating with modern technology, advanced quality control systems, and highly automated processes, producing billions of coins efficiently and consistently. Yet even in the most advanced systems, mistakes happen, and when they happen at the mint, they create a unique category of collectibles known as error coins. And the 2011 penny struck at the Denver Mint sits at the center of intense speculation, debate, and fascination among collectors, because it represents the idea that even modern pennies can hide extraordinary value. The Denver Mint uses a mint mark to identify its coins, and in 2011 it produced vast quantities of Lincoln cents composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. However, this composition alone opens the door to numerous error possibilities, because the bonding process between copper plating and zinc core must be precise, and when it fails, the results can be dramatic. One of the most important possibilities that could elevate a 2011 penny into multi-million-dollar territory is the wrong planchet error, where the coin is Struck on a metal blank not intended for a cent. Despite modern safeguards, planchet mix-ups have occurred before, and when they do, they produce some of the most valuable coins in existence. Imagine a 2011 D penny struck on a solid copper planchet similar to pre-1982 cents, or even more astonishing, on a planchet intended for a dime, nickel, or foreign coin. Such an error would be immediately obvious through weight, color, and composition analysis, and because modern wrong planchet errors are exceedingly rare, especially involving the cent denomination, the value would surge dramatically, particularly if the coin were unique or one of only a few known examples. Another powerful factor lies in die errors and hubbing mistakes. While the mint has improved die-making processes over the years, errors such as double dies have not been eliminated entirely. A true double die occurs during the creation of the die itself, not during the striking of the coin, and results in strong, consistent doubling across multiple design elements. If a 2011 D penny displayed bold doubled lettering on the date Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, or Lincoln's profile, it would already be highly valuable. But when collectors imagine a $9 million example, they envision something far more extreme, perhaps a dramatic double die combined with other anomalies such as die cracks, cuds, or retained die breaks that alter the design in visible and unforgettable ways. Such coins become visual spectacles, and collectors place enormous premiums on coins that immediately tell a story without magnification. Striking errors are another major area of possibility and include off-center strikes, broad strikes, multiple strikes, and misaligned dies. While many off-center strikes are minor and common, a severely off-center 2011 D penny with full date and mint mark visible and dramatic blank space would be far rarer and far more valuable. And if that off-center strike occurred on the wrong planchet or combined with multiple strikes, the uniqueness would multiply value exponentially. Another extraordinary scenario involves a capped die error, where a coin becomes stuck to the die and continues striking other planchets, creating distorted ghost-like impressions. Such errors are extremely rare in modern sense, and a 2011 D penny showing clear evidence of a capped die event would be a centerpiece of any advanced collection. Then there are transitional and experimental errors, which often fuel the most intense speculation among collectors. Although 2011 was not officially a transitional year for the cent, the mint constantly tests materials, plating thicknesses, and production techniques behind the scenes, and occasionally experimental planchets or test strikes escape into circulation. If a 2011 D penny were discovered to have an undocumented alloy composition, plating thickness, or internal structure, it would challenge official mint records and become historically significant. Coins that rewrite what we know about mint practices are not just collectibles, they are artifacts of discovery, and institutions, collectors, and museums compete aggressively for such pieces, driving values into the millions. Another possibility that cannot be ignored is the missing or malformed mint mark. While missing mint marks are often misunderstood and not always valuable depending on the year and mint process, a genuinely missing D mint mark on a 2011 penny caused by a filled or damaged die could still be valuable, but to reach $9 million. Collectors imagine something far more unusual, perhaps a duplicated mint mark, an inverted mint mark, or a mint mark positioned in an impossible location, something that defies documented mint procedures. Authentication would be critical, but if proven genuine, such a coin would instantly become legendary because it would represent a minting scenario thought impossible in the modern era. Condition plays a vital role as well, because rarity alone does not guarantee astronomical value. The coin must also retain strong visual appeal, originality, and integrity. A heavily damaged or altered coin loses credibility, whereas a pristine or near pristine example with a massive error becomes almost mythical. Error coins are graded differently than normal coins, with emphasis placed on the clarity of the error and the absence of post-mint damage, and a 2011 D penny with a dramatic error preserved in exceptional condition would be a once-in-a-generation find. Another fascinating possibility involves strike through errors, where foreign material such as grease, cloth, metal shavings, or debris interferes with the striking process, resulting in missing or distorted design elements. While many strike-through errors are subtle, a severe strike-through that removes major portions of the design while retaining overall structure could be extremely valuable, and when combined with other errors such as off-metal or double die conditions, the coin becomes unique. Uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value because collectors compete for things that cannot be replicated or replaced beyond physical characteristics. There is also the realm of insider and undocumented anomalies, sometimes referred to as mint escapes. These coins may originate from experimental runs, damaged dies, or unofficial testing that never entered official records, and while controversial, they often become the most valuable pieces once authenticated because they Reveal hidden aspects of mint operations. A 2011 penny tied to such an origin would ignite intense debate and interest, and debate fuels demand, which fuels price. Another element that pushes the narrative of a $9 million penny is the psychology of discovery. Modern collectors are fascinated by the idea that life-changing value can still exist in circulation, that modern money is not fully explored. This belief drives people to search through rolls, boxes and bags of pennies, hoping to uncover something extraordinary. When such a discovery is made, it captures media attention and public imagination, and this attention can dramatically increase perceived and real value because wealthy collectors and investors seek cultural relevance as much as rarity. Auction dynamics cannot be ignored either. The true value of any collectible is ultimately determined at auction, where competition, emotion and prestige collide. If two determined bidders believe they are chasing a once-in-a-lifetime modern-era coin with historic significance, prices can escalate far beyond traditional estimates. Records are broken not because of logic alone but because of desire, legacy and the wish to own a piece of history. A $9 million valuation for a 2011 penny would likely result from such a scenario, where rarity, story and competition converge. There are also persistent rumors within the collecting community, whispers of a remarkable 2011 cent held quietly in a private collection, examined by experts yet unseen by the public. Some claim it shows evidence of a wrong metal strike combined with die doubling. Others suggest it may be an experimental plating error. Skeptics dismiss these stories, but history has shown that many of the world's most famous coins began as rumors, dismissed as impossible until proven real. The passage of time adds another layer of intrigue, because the longer a coin remains undiscovered, the more believable its authenticity becomes. Survival through years of circulation without detection suggests legitimacy and adds romance to the story. Collectors value not just metal but narrative, and a coin that emerges years later as a shocking discovery becomes instantly iconic. Authentication would involve extensive testing, including metallurgical analysis, weight comparison, die study and historical research, and any claim of a $9 million penny would face intense scrutiny. But if the coin passed every test and emerged as a genuine, unprecedented error, its value